that we're knowing this early on in the game. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to see who kind of steps up and is able to join our family who may not have otherwise. Now that we're doing digital.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, if you audition early, this is also the first year that we are giving you the option to not pay an application fee if you audition by December 15th. So auditions are open until February 1st, but sometimes it's hard to even pay an application fee, and we wanted to make sure that we removed as many barriers as possible. So if you audition early, you do not need to pay that application fee if you do it by December 15th.
Free, my favorite thing.
For the low price of nothing. You can
nothing to lose, literally.
Yeah. Cool. Want to kick it off?
Let's
do it.
Dive in. Uh-oh.
So while Ben's loading this up, so I'm just going to say, so this class is obviously sort of specialized talking about our process for Acapella Academy, but I think part of it we hope is that it's going to be really broadly applicable to any audition you have anywhere, particularly any video audition you have, which for the foreseeable future, I imagine there's going to be a lot of that. So we hope whether or not you're planning to audition for Acapella Academy, which we hope you will if you're eligible, we hope that this will just help you audition better, because we've spent a lot of our adult lives watching videos of people auditioning for things and auditioning for things ourselves. And we just want to pass on some of that knowledge because frankly, when you're running auditions, you want people to do well. You want to see people really step up and have all the information and do well. So we hope that this class will help you both with us and with anything else that you're doing. So let's get to it.
Yeah, so with that, so the first section we're going to do is just about general audition tips, not necessarily specific to ours, but just general, and then we're going to dive into our specific process a little later on. So first, we're going to talk about the technical side of things, just what you can do from a technical standpoint to put yourself in a good position to have a good video that is received well. Oh, it's a little bit slow. Okay, there we go. First things first, read all the instructions. This is something that we see a lot. There are people that audition for us that don't necessarily catch everything. They put things out of order. What are some other things that people do?
Just not doing some of the sections.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, skipping some of the sections.
Yeah. And then we have to like follow up with people and be like, oh, can you send us this part? Can you send us this part? And it's a hassle.
Yeah. So that's the first thing, is just like making sure you are fully aware of what is required of you and being really careful and not rushing through any of that process. One thing we are going to ask this year, which is really useful, this is specific to us, but adding timestamps on your video so we can kind of go quickly to each section. So all you have to do in the description of a YouTube video is type in, 328 personal statement or whatever it is, and it'll automatically kind of find that and link it. You don't have to link it anything. You don't have to do anything yourself. Just type in the time and then it'll automatically do it, which is a cool.
Very helpful for us.
Super
very helpful, and probably helpful for any other audition too, with multiple sections.
And I think we're not making this mandatory, so to speak, but we are strongly encouraging it because it makes our lives a lot easier, and we really appreciate it.
Starting with the video aspect of things, you want to make sure you're in the good lighting. So Avi is a great example of not amazing lighting right now. He's a little blown out. So if you're on your iPhone, just putting yourself by some natural light, making sure.
I am by natural light.
Yeah, but your skin is just too radiant then.
Not enough natural light, or too much natural light.
You can actually on your not on Zoom, but if you're taking a video on your iPhone, you can actually push the little thing while you're about to take a video, pull the lighting down if it's too bright, or pull it up, and you can adjust that stuff on your phone. Framing angle. So, we don't want to see people looking down at a really unflattering angle. We don't want to, make sure you're kind of positioning yourself and looking back at it and saying, oh, I look good. I like how I look. It's not a weird angle. It's not, it looks nice. And framing wise, you want to be in the middle. Just kind of basic stuff that you can find a lot of resources for online, just even like how to take a video with your iPhone. It'll have all these tips you may not have even thought of. It sounds obvious, but like there are things that you may not have thought of. Anything else on the video side, guys?
You made fun of Avi, now I turned his video off.
Horizontal. Shoot it horizontal, not vertical.
Horizontal is always good, always the way. Moving on to audio. For our audition, we like to hear exactly what it sounds like. So, you don't need to have a mic. If you do have a separate mic, you can do that. Just don't add any extra effects to it. But camera audio is perfectly fine. Making sure that you are not clipping or distorting. If you're on a webcam, you're more likely to do this because the iPhone and most phones have an automatic gain reduction. And so it'll kind of automatically make sure you don't clip. But if you're on a webcam and on a computer, you're way more likely to do that because I don't think they have that. So going into the sound settings, making sure your microphone is turned down enough, just really taking the time and care to make sure you sound good.
Yeah, and you'll know too. It's like if the sound is distorted, you'll know that it's clipping. If you're not familiar with these terms, basically it's just like if it doesn't sound good and it sounds either too loud or overloaded, or you're getting any kind of distortion or weird sound in your thing, you might want to investigate whether it was recorded without that noise reduction and fix that up.
And then, like I said before, using online resources, taking your time and really making sure you're presenting everything the there are tons of resources online for all of this stuff. Okay, if it wants to load, there we go. Quality control, this is key. Making sure you are testing your audio and video and not going through your whole audition and saying that was the best take ever, and then going back and seeing that you're clipping and you're distorting and the angle's weird and the lighting's weird, and you're like, oh, but it was so great, I'm just gonna use it anyway, So instead of going all the way through it, take a little test, sing a little bit, sing the loudest section that you're gonna sing, take a little video test, look at it, make sure you like it, and then go and film the full thing.
Yeah. Let me add to at that juncture. So there's no points off for editing stuff together. So if you want to do all the sections of the audition separately and then edit them together into one video, you can do that. Sometimes people do the audition in one long take. That's also fine. But we don't take any points off if you want to, do it one section at a time, make sure it's right. We'll get to this in a little bit, but when we watch these auditions, and I think this is true of most auditions, especially if it's a video audition, we're assuming that you took the time to do it exactly the way that you want to do it. So, feel free to do it on your own terms and don't feel like you have to necessarily do it all in one shot. You can take the time to do it separately and really make it what you want it to be.
We have people come, they're in different outfits. They did one section one day and another section another day.
It's fine. Honestly,
totally
different
fine.
backgrounds, different. Yeah, it's clear it happened over the course of time, which is awesome because it means that they worked on it.
Yeah, different acoustic spaces too. Sometimes people do like if they feel more comfortable doing like the blending stuff in like a more reverberant area. Like we've seen that too. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get more into this in a second, but that's just a thought.
Yeah, so testing, listening back, making sure once you have filmed your audition that you have listened through the whole thing and you're happy with it, and you're not just kind of, oh, I did it and I'm gonna send it off. I think there are a lot of things that we listen to that we're like, did they really listen all the way through this? Because there are some just like really easily fixable mistakes that we know they can do better, but they just didn't quite take the time to really listen and check their work and make sure they were presenting the best possible thing. Playing back.
And then it's a question of like, oh, did they know? Did they know that they did this or didn't they? Like that's like a question that we don't know the answer to.
Right.
Don't make us ask that question.
We can't assume anything beyond what you've given us. That's the unfortunately that's the nature of virtual auditions. We can't say, oh, do it again. Oh, if we're in the room with you, it's a little different. If it's a video, we have to assume this is the very best that you can do. So make it the very best that you can do.
100%.
Playing back for others, if you're not sure, if you want another set of ears on it, ask your music teacher, your parents, whoever, trusted friends, play it back and see if they have any critiques or things that they know you can do better. When you are submitting your audition, make sure that the video permissions are set correctly. So in Google Drive, in YouTube, making sure it's not a private YouTube video, making sure that if you want it to be private, you can make it unlisted so that only the people with the link can view it. But if you make it private, we can't see it. So it has to be unlisted or public.
I think occasionally someone has tried to submit private and give like our email address permission, but that doesn't work because Ben, Rob, and Avi need to see it, and they're not logged in at Academy, which is usually where I am. So that's why private doesn't work.
Yep.
Another big thing about auditions is just the way you approach it, and we'll get into this in the next section as well, but making sure you are being confident and you're not apologizing for anything. So if you're sick, if there's something that's not ideal, if there's noise in the background, or if there's something else, we don't really care. We just want to see you do your best at that moment. And if you're sick, if your voice is a little huskier than normal, it doesn't matter.
Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's character.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, we can't assume anything that we're not seeing. So if you said, "Oh, I'm sick and I'm usually way better," we can't trust that. We can only trust what we are hearing. So you may as well act like this is your very best and just like really go for it.
And also, I'll add to that too. Sorry, Ben, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'll add to that too. Like, I think a lot of the time, unless you've completely lost your voice, we can usually hear what your voice sounds like. You know what I mean? It's even if you're not at 100%. Like, we've had people audition over the years that had little colds or whatever, and they had a little bit extra rasp or whatever. But if you project that confidence and you put your talent out there, it still reads. I doubt that we have ever watched an audition where somebody was like a little under the weather who was like totally killing it and totally like gonna make it, and we were like, they were gonna make it, but they just like had a little cough like in there. It just doesn't really happen that way. Just have confidence and know that you got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, this is also not just for Acapella Academy, but in general. This is something across the board. If you're auditioning for anything, you don't want to apologize, and even give them a reason to have a skeptical ear towards you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just give it to them how you always would. And also, if you're sicker and you don't have the same range, then change the key to match the range, or use a song that type of voice will really fit it.
The number of times so I'm also a voice teacher, and the number of times I've told my students, if you don't tell us, we won't know. Like, straight up, and auditioning and performing can be so psychological, right? For yourself and for the viewer. So like Avi said, like, don't point out things to look at negatively, sell it. And yeah, I've seen in a caption before, like, "Oh, I know I'm flat in this one part, sorry." And it's like, I don't, okay.
So guess what we're going to go listen to?
Can you sing it not flat? Yeah.
Totally.
Well, yeah, if you're flat in that one part, maybe redo it so that you're not
100%
that you're flat there. You want to do your very best. Okay, cool. And then the last thing on this section is don't procrastinate, because this happens all the time. People wait to the last second, and then of course they get sick the last few days. I'm like, "Oh, can I have an extension? Oh, I was going to record it this weekend and then I got super sick." And, I know I'm a big procrastinator. But for this, if it's something that you really care about, I really recommend just starting slow, doing one section at a time, and not saving it all till the last second, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Especially now, life is so unpredictable. Like, you just never know what's going to happen in a couple weeks.
At least, if you're somebody that needs that rush of like doing it at the last minute, at least like tell yourself that the last minute is a week earlier. You know what I mean? Like, set your last minute a little earlier than everybody else's last minute.
Mm-hmm. Not our last minute.
Not our last minute.
Yeah. And technical difficulties too, like giving yourself time, like if it takes a long time to upload, so you're not stressing out over that, back up what you did so you don't accidentally like lose a file if it cracks, just plan ahead a little bit.
Totally. Yeah. Do a few things every day, do like a little test one day, and then, learn the part. And if you just break it up into more manageable chunks, I think that'll be really helpful. And then I found a cool little GIF here. And so that's all the technical stuff. Moving on to the artistic side of things.
You guys, Ben put a lot of work into this PowerPoint.
Doing your research. So, whatever you're auditioning for, making sure you know who they are, what they stand for, what they're going to want to see from their applicants or auditionees or whatever the case may be, just knowing what they're about. And so watching this presentation is doing your research. Congratulations, you're already doing it. because you're finding out exactly what we look for. And, you know, of course, not everything offers this. So, you know, going to their website, if it's an arts program or a summer program or something like that, you know, to getting their vibe check and like seeing what they're about and how you can present yourself as a candidate for them.
And some places you audition for, you really won't find that much, but we have a staggering amount of stuff that you can find out about us, you know, going through our website, through our socials, through our YouTube. And on our, when you go to our audition page specifically that has all the info, all the instructions, there's an article where these guys say what they look for. There's also a recommendation that you can go to YouTube and you can look at everyone's Academy auditions throughout the years. So you could go down the rabbit hole on YouTube and see so many examples. And a lot of them will say accepted, so you can see what the accepted ones look like as well.
Yeah, exactly. Next step is authenticity. So this is really tricky for you know, 12 to 18-year-olds who are still kind of figuring themselves out, musically, socially, every way. And yeah, it's definitely hard. But when someone is being really authentic to themselves and really finds themselves musically, it's immediately apparent to us. And this comes down to a lot of different aspects, but you know, celebrating who you are as a person, your personality. We love to see exactly who you are. We don't want to see some stiff person. I am going to be auditioning for this camp because, you know, we want to see you be loose, be fun, play to your strengths. And then Rob, do you want to talk about if you don't know what your strengths are musically?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think that a lot of sort of the base way that a lot of people get this right is just asking like, what do I love to listen to? Like, what are the things that really excite me? We've seen a lot of people do really well just by performing the things that they love. I think the next step on top of that is do a little research with the people in your life. If you have a teacher that you trust or friends that you trust, you know, or people whose musical opinion you trust, something to think about is, you know, beyond just like, what am I going to sing? You know, how am I going to present myself? Like what, you know, what is my X factor as a singer? And, you know, maybe you're someone who's really great at jazz. So, you know, you're going to do songs that have like a little bit of a jazz spin. Maybe you're going to put a little jazz spin on something that doesn't necessarily already have a jazz spin. But then taking it a step further, you can, you know, see that even more, you know, wear something jazzy that really feels like communicates, you know, what your vibe is. Film it somewhere where, you know, you feel like, oh, this is an environment that like I really feel like communicates my personality. These aren't things that necessarily like you have to do, but there are things that all kind of subtly add up into a stronger audition, and make something that feels more cohesive. And you'll see in a little bit when we talk about sort of like how we actually do acceptances. It really is to your benefit to give us a really clear idea of not just, you know, what you sound like, but who you are as a performer, who you are as a complete musician, because that goes into the choices about, you know, who we're going to take for specific spots that we might need for specific groups, or personalities that we feel would be really beneficial in any given year of camp. So the more you can communicate that with not just what you sing, but everything in your audition package, it's really to your advantage.
Yeah, great.
And I think also like that psychological thing, because auditions can feel kind of awkward. Like sometimes you can be focusing on like, you know, you're kind of being the judge in that moment, and you can't be the referee and the player at the same time. So instead of focusing on, am I good? How do I compare against somebody else? You know, what makes me unique? What do I love? And then when you sing to the camera, instead of focusing on yourself, focus on like what you love or another person or another thing. Like obviously we do music, hopefully we do music not just to be good, but because we love it and to communicate something. So if you focus on that and you send that good juju to the camera, that's going to feel so much better for you and for us watching you than someone who's like focusing on like, is this good? You know?
And we're going to watch some good examples of this in a minute. So we'll get to kind of be more targeted about talking about it.
This is something that we say all the time around camp, and comparison is the thief of joy. And you'll see later on, you know, there are so many different kinds of singers out there. The popularity of certain styles and sounds will come and go. And I think there's a big tendency, especially among softer voiced people or people who can't riff as well, to want to be bigger, beltier, riffier singers. because that's what's hot, but actually being a belty singer isn't really hot anymore. But yeah, so the point is everyone has their own unique voice. You're going to succeed when you find what that is and really play that up, and not when you're comparing yourself to someone else and saying, why can't I sing like them? I want to do this, I want to do that. And just really owning your skills and what you can do and what makes you special as a performer.
Yeah.
And there's a place for everyone at camp. We have all different types of groups, and that's kind of how we go about selecting and stuff as well. But we want to see all the things that you can do, not all the things that you think that you should do. We want to see what you're best at, so you have to play to your strengths.
Absolutely.
We basically already said it, but I've had some students who've observed auditions. One was like a proctor for like a live audition, so people coming in all day, and the other was online. And both of them came to me and were like, across the board, if somebody was confident, they were better. They were like, even if they you could tell that like other people were better singers or whatever, but if they were timid, it made for a less strong audition. So it's crazy how just selling yourself makes a huge difference. Like, you're doing it anyway, so you may as well just do it with confidence.
Just fake it, you may be scared out of your mind, but just, still be true to yourself and what you're musically good at. But then just once you're going to do it, just really go for it, because there's no reason to hold back. Mm-hmm. Song selection is key. This is, goes back to playing your strengths and maybe, like Rob was saying, maybe if you're like a jazzier singer and you want to take a pop song and make it jazzy, maybe you want to do a country folk song. Maybe you want, there's so many different avenues to explore. And I think there have been some flips of songs that have been really ear catching for us. Not required at all, but go beyond, I'm a rock singer, so I'm going to do a rock song. Maybe, go outside of the genre. And also just make sure that the song works, that you can perform that song the best that you possibly can. We've seen a lot of auditions where people try to stretch what they can do and say, I want to show them I can do this really high, belty, impressive song, but they don't do it very well. They would show us much better what they could do if they did something a little more comfortable for them, where they could nail every single note and really kill the whole thing, as opposed to reaching for this thing that you think they want to hear and not really doing it that well.
Accuracy is much more impressive to me than trying to be impressive.
Yeah, I've made this mistake myself many times, where I've planned something in audition that had the highest note in it that I could hit, and then I didn't hit it very well because it was the highest note I could possibly hit. You know what I mean? And the people that were auditioning me didn't know that. If I had sung a whole step lower, it would have still been pretty high, and I would have actually hit it, and it would have still been a high note. So you don't have to go to the extremes of what you can do, as long as it's something you can do really consistently.
Excuse my language, but I tell students, is the song kicking your ass, or are you kicking the song's ass?
Yeah.
I know. Sorry, so racy.
You said the ass word.
So yeah, so when picking songs, comfort is really key. Comfort range-wise, comfort style-wise. This is not the place where you want to be stretching your abilities. That's for practice. This is where you show exactly what you can nail and what you're absolutely best at.
Mm-hmm.
So here is, now we're moving on to the actual Academy audition. The first part of the audition is the introduction. Most people, this is just fun. This is not at all what you have to do, but we just wanted to show it because it's fun and it shows what's possible. Most people say, hi, I'm Ben from Los Angeles. I'm a baritone. Here's my audition, which is perfectly fine. But here's a fun one.
to stress that you don't have to do that. It's really important to understand
she would have
that
made
you
it anyways.
don't have to. But here's the thing, like most of the time, if you're not inspired to do something like that, it's totally fine. And we would rather you just do a quick, appropriate punchy intro. I think a mistake that people do make is that they feel like they have to do some kind of crazy intro when they aren't really inspired to do it, and it's not really, doesn't feel right for them. So if you feel like that's something that you can really do and do well, go for it. But there's no pressure whatsoever to do that. And if you don't feel like that's you, please don't do that because it's not necessary.
What's perfect about it is it shows a person's personality, right? Which, whether it's in an intro or just somewhere in your video, we love seeing who you are.
The bottom line for intros is have fun, and where's the next one?
Make them good or make them short.
And be yourself. We love the weirdness, we're all weird here, so okay, that's gonna be irritating to do that every time. Okay, moving on. Main skill. This is the meat of the audition. If you are primarily a soloist or part singer, this is going to be your thing. You're going to do the solo. And here we have 4 contrasting solos, which I think shows what we were talking about before about really owning what you are good at specifically. And I think these show it really nicely. So I'm going to play the 4 of them.
Grab your coat and snatch your hat. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear that pit-a-pat? And the happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.
So there's the first one, really awesome.
Grab
36, 37. Here's the next one.
This is non-stop, baby, you got me going crazy. You're heavier than I knew. And I don't want no other, you're my cameo lover, only here for a moment or two. Stay inside that bubble with all of your trouble in your black hole. You turn from the skies and dance with your demise. I'll be here when you come home, home.
There's that one.
I don't need a whole lot of money. I don't need a big fine car. I've got everything that a girl could want. I got more than that I could ask for. I don't have to run around. I don't have to stay up all night. 'Cause I got sweet, sweet loving man, and he knows just how to treat me right. See my baby, he's alright. See my baby, we're so tight. Don't you know he is? Phone stone cold, stone cold. I was your amber, but now she's your shade of gold. Stone cold, baby. God knows I try to feel happy for you. Know that I am, even if I.
Yeah, so these are 4 great examples of people being completely authentic to their musical selves, their personalities, their vibes, and all 4 of them made us feel really comfortable watching. We're like, this is what you do, this is great. We can absolutely envision you in a specific group based on this audition. And none of them really pushed far outside of their abilities. The last one had really high notes in it, but you could tell she's comfortable with it. She's sang that a lot. It was in her comfort zone. And yeah, anything to add?
I think it's the control of style. I think that's a lot of it. Like, regardless of whatever your style is, I think that we usually react really positively to knowing that you have control over what you're doing. I think that's sort of a common thread with all of those. It's just like you're projecting, whether if you've a lighter voice, that's fine, but you're really leaning into that. You're choosing a song that shows that off. You're not trying to be something that you're not. You're just doing that thing. We can just see that you're comfortable doing it. I think that's really has a lot to do with, whatever the style is. That's like the common denominator in my mind.
Yeah. And when people pick songs like these that are so comfortable for them and so effortless, it makes our decision so easy. Because it does happen that really good singers pick songs that aren't perfect for them. And we have to kind of wrap our ears around it and say, oh, okay, it was a little bit of the song choice. It was a little bit of that.
Yeah, it makes us guess.
Yeah, the more barriers like that you put, the more difficult it is to get in. If you do something like this and it's so clear and it's so comfortable, it makes our job really easy.
I also want to point out, like, none of those, maybe Claudia, none of those were like completely flawless. You know what I mean? They weren't like without any, little pitch thing here and there, a little sound thing, whatever. You can have, it doesn't need to be without flaw, because sometimes, in fact, flawless is soulless. Flawless can be, actually not communicative. So if you're given it, if you're putting yourself in that zone, it's okay if you're like, a little under, a little over, if it works for what you're doing. That's the thing. Got to work for the style. It's
about control. As long as you have control over your voice, over your style, it's all good. It's all gravy. Because there are pitch moments that do indicate a lack of control.
Right.
But none of these did. This was just kind of natural human pitchiness, which happens when you sing.
Hashtag natural human pitchiness.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay. No. Oh, common pitfalls. This is our little icon.
This is nice.
A little banana peel. Are there any common pitfalls to solo singing that we haven't talked about yet?
Not picking the right part of the song to start from.
Oh, that's a good one. So when we do these auditions, we have hundreds and hundreds of auditions to listen through. And so if the really great moment is, 40 seconds in, we may not get that far because we have to listen to the solo part singing. Like, we have to go through the whole thing. So really putting your best foot forward in all ways in this audition is really beneficial to you. And really finding the part of the song that is great. And it might be, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to the highest, loudest part. It just means that if the verse of a particular song is maybe a little boring, doesn't give you a chance to really shine, and the pre-chorus is where you want to start from the pre-chorus.
This might be kind of obvious, but in the key of the song and the range, it's not cheating to change it from the original key, or if if something fits pretty good, except for maybe a low note here or there, change the tune. We don't care. In fact, those things might actually be pluses instead of minuses. 100%. A lot of times people will sing really, really, really low in their range just so that when they hit the high note's comfortable, but it means that you're at the very bottom of your voice for like over half of your song, which isn't great.
Right. So just pick that section, because when we do songs in groups at camp, we change the keys all the time. And also we switch off soloists. So, we're going to give the soloist in the chorus, it's going to fit perfectly in their voice for just that one section. And then someone else with a lower voice is going to take the verse. So, you don't have to sing a super rangy song all the way through. Just
I would honestly say to make any auditioner's job easier, make sure you wind up in the best part of your range, whatever you feel that is, in the first, at most 10 seconds of whatever you're singing. Like, what's the scientific thing? Like, people make up their minds about something within like 7 seconds or something like that. It's like some crazy short amount of time. Like, make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, whatever that means to you, in that first, 7 to 10 seconds.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean hitting the high note.
Yeah.
So that's probably just going to be the middle of your voice. Just wherever it's just like comfortable and effortless. Okay, great. Moving on. Oh, no. Okay.
When they.
If you are a bass, this is for you. If you are primarily a bass singer, you want to put that first. We want to see that first thing. Don't do your solo first. If you're a bass, you're going to be doing bass lines. So do your bass line first.
You thought you were going to sing words. Come on.
Come on.
And then let me just go to the end of this. This is irritating me. Okay. So bass, things we look for. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to play it. And I'm going to talk about it again. Pitch, really important. You're the foundation of the group. You got to be in tune. Tone, you got to have a nice tone. You don't have to sing super low. You know, an E flat is all you really need, but it has to be a nice sound down there. Rhythm, obviously you have to be really in time. It's a rhythmic foundation as well. And then style, singing the bass line in whatever style that bass line is meant to be sung. So I'll talk about that after we listen to this. This is Simon from New Zealand.
I'm going to be doing the bass line from Superstition by Stevie Wonder. One of my favorite songs. I like it.
Awesome. So basses, the ability of our basses is kind of across the board. There are some basses that are very experienced singing this style, as Simon is. There are some like choral singers with low voices who just have great instruments and great pitch, but don't really know this vocal bass thing. So I think the ability is really across the board, and we definitely do take basses who don't have vocal bass practice, who are quick learners, and we work with them. So that's just a quick note. Do you guys have something to say? I saw some movement.
Yeah. Avi, do you have anything you want? I've got a few things.
Yeah. I mean,
as the bass, give you the floor.
Yeah. You know, when I listen to a bass singer, I want to make sure that they're not trying to sing lower than they can, that they have the ability to be able to sing soft and loud. And honestly, what I would say would be to just do a little bit of research on what an a cappella vocal bass sounds like. And you can have different tones, but when I'm looking at a bass, it's 100% the pitch, accuracy, the rhythm, and then lastly is the tone. I feel like a lot of basses really try to swallow their sound and make it sound bigger than it really is. And you don't need to do that. Just use your natural voice and show that you can be 100% in tune and 100% in time, because that is really the most important thing. You know, you may be able to sing a solo at Academy, but what we're looking for is to see that you can do what you're signing up to do. And basses really have to be the most in tune. They're going to be the only person on their part, and they're also going to be the other part of the rhythm section. So you have to be 100% in time. So just to recap, don't sing anything that's out of your range. You know, and don't try to change your voice in order to make it sound lower. And really just show that you can sing in tune and in time. And I think that for us, when we listen to somebody sing a bass line and it's not in tune, all we are getting is that version of you. We're not your choir directors. We don't know how you can usually do it, or that you can do it. When you send something off to us and it's out of tune, then we assume that you don't know that it's out of tune. And if you don't know that it's out of tune, then you can't be in a group. You know, you're really going to take away from the group. So think about all those things, and just know that also if you're a bass without a huge lower register, you don't really need to try to show that you have a lower range than you do. It's
That
really about
that example,
pitch
in fact,
and
was
the
not that low. Like,
no,
I mean,
not low at all. And
yeah, that
also his
wasn't.
tone isn't necessarily a super bassy tone, but he's extremely accurate and he has a great groove. So listening to him, I can tell, oh man, he's really going to add to a group. And I can personally work with him to get his tone right for a microphone. But honestly, off mic, he would be perfect. And he was killer. He was amazing.
Yeah, and same thing with, you know, the different styles question. Like, if your thing might not be like octave jumps and, you know, crazy bouncy bass lines, that's fine. Like, if you are somebody that just like can really nail
Sing, Rob.
You know what I mean? Like that, if you did that bass line, we'd be like, that was a really good bass line.
A little Mark Hoppus bass line there.
Yeah, you know, just like just chilling. But you know, again, like don't feel like you have to fit into somebody else's mold of talent. You know, whatever your thing is, you know, you do it.
Yeah. Just add to that. I think a lot of bassists fall into the pitfall of singing too loudly when they're doing this. They're which is kind of a high school, it's like a high school choir thing. And when you're doing a cappella bass, it's softer than you think. It's always softer than you think, because when you're on mic, the lower resonance is going to come only when you dial it back and really let your chest resonate. Which
and when we hear someone go over the top and try to be as loud as they possibly can, even if it's in tune and it's impressive, it makes me think, how are they possibly going to be able to be a bass in a group when they're singing that loud? It shows me that you don't have restraint, and that you won't be able to blend with your group, and that you won't be able to sing on mic. And you know, and if that is something that really is a strength of yours, then maybe do something with that. Then it's perfectly in time and in tune, but then also show that you can sing quieter. I think it's really, really important that we know that you can be in time, in tune, and that you can have a low resonance, you know.
Also, I've heard a lot of basses, especially if their voice isn't the lowest. Basically, the lower in your voice that you try to sing loud, the more likely it is that you'll sing sharp.
Very true.
Cool. Let's move on from bass. Let's just go all the way to the
By the way, while we're moving, so we're collecting the questions from the chat, y'all. So we will address those questions later on. We're not ignoring you. We're just trying to get through all the basics, and then we'll go back and answer questions.
So for Beatbox VP, we have a similar kind of set of things that we. This is Emma Watson Beatbox GIF. So time. Let me go back one so we're not distracted by Emma. There we go. We have time, you know, just literally just basically keeping time and not rushing and not dragging. Very simple, just that. Then there's groove, which is the feel, which is, you know, does it feel right in this musical style? If there's a little swing to it, does it swing? Is it not totally rigid and robotic? Does it feel good, basically? Musicality, which is making sure all your fills, making sure everything that you choose, every hit that you do serves the music. And this is something we run into a lot with beatboxers who are coming from the beatbox world and have an amazing range. The next thing is palette, amazing sounds, amazing things that they can create and combinations. But then when it comes to simplifying and being really musical in a group setting, some of them have difficulty kind of dialing it back. So if you are a beatboxer who does a lot of that crazy over the top stuff, that's awesome, and we love to see that. But make sure you also show us that you can be simple and support a group in the way that you need to. And there are a lot of people that kind of do both, that you can see if you go to our auditions. Let's watch Tucker and then we'll talk a little more. Anyway, so that's Tucker. Rob, do you want to talk about like why you like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I chose that one to show for this because I think it's just such a great example of building musicality into a solo beatbox performance. You guys are reacting in the chat to exactly what I was reacting to when I saw this, which is like he started off with this really simple, this just breathing. That was all it was, and then just layered in these other parts and really took us on a journey with what he was doing. That's something I think that people really take for granted and don't do very often with solo beatbox things. Just keep in mind that it is just like a vocal performance. Like it can have an arc to it, and it can have a real musicality to it. And something else that I love about Tucker's audition for this thing, and one of the things that I really look for, something that I think differentiates like pretty good percussionists from really good percussionists, is how much they pay attention to the little things that connect everything. And you'll see like with Tucker's, like although like all that stuff, like he keeps it right in the pocket, doesn't rush, doesn't drag, it's all right there. I'm not sure I'll be able to model this well, but there's a difference between like where everything in the middle is really lined up versus like sometimes what we hear is like where people are really just focused on like the big moments, and the stuff in between is sloppy or just not really clear. You want to make sure that all the parts of it are really clear. I think this models that really well.
Yeah, one thing, the way that he breaks it down at the beginning lets us know that he knows exactly what the building blocks of this is. So a lot of beatboxers, when they go full 1,000% right away, it makes us doubt, like, could they actually break it down into something more simple? Do they know how to break the beat down into something that can support a group? Whereas this is certain. We're certain because of the way that he broke it down that he understands how to dial it back and how to dial it back tastefully. So that was really cool to see. Any other common pitfalls of beatboxers, vocal percussionists?
Yeah, I want to add too. So palette is the last thing on this list. I would say for a reason. I think that palette meaning the number of sounds you can make.
Or like so, what the sounds are.
Yeah, what the sounds are.
They are. Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, if you have like a all those different sounds that you can do, that's great. If you can incorporate those, that's awesome. Some people come in and can just do like, but they do it really, really well, and they can do it with some really cool patterns, and that's totally great. We've had people come to camp who really don't have a lot of sounds that they can do, and they wind up in a group where that's fine. That works well for the group that we put them in. But groove, time, groove, musicality are more important, I think, than the number of sounds you can make. I think that's a pitfall that people get in a lot, where they like, or we're like, oh, I need to like do these 8 different kinds of snares. You can do one snare really well. You can do more than that, great. That one snare, find your snare.
For sure. Cool. Moving on. We're going to go into part singing now. So there are 2 part singing examples. One of them is Georgia on My Mind. And they are contrasting. So we look for different things in each of them. In Georgia, we're primarily looking for blend and vowels and matching up with how the part tapes do it. Making sure you're pitch accurate, rhythm accurate, and the style is appropriate for this example. So let's listen to Annalie. Cool. So things to listen for in this. Vibrato. When there's vibrato, it's at the end of the notes. The scoops. Whoa. When those move. And just the overall vibe of this arrangement. And, you know, we want to know that you can hear something and immediately kind of sink into it and blend and match with what's going on. Anything else on Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, every aspect of it. I mean, I think that also the other thing about it is dynamics. I love to see someone that can sing some dynamics. That makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, this is another area too where like again, like we assume whatever you put in this audition is your best shot at it. You know what I mean? So we see parts a lot where some part of the part singing was okay, but you know, they messed up another thing. If you mess it up, like do it again, because you know we assume that you got this thing, had basically as much time to do it as you wanted because you've got 3 months to do it. And whatever you're showing us is your best shot at it. So make sure that it really is your best shot at it. It's tough. It's tough to get into camp with big pitch or rhythm errors in your part singing.
Yeah. If we really, really, really like you, maybe we'll ask you to do it again because we think you can do better, but don't count on that.
Yeah.
That's like a last, yeah, don't count on that. That's only if everything else was amazing and we like really want to make sure. Another thing about Georgia, I totally just forgot what it is.
We'll come back to this. I think it'll be good because we're gonna see the difference between somebody later on who auditioned and didn't get in, and then auditioned and got in, and we're gonna see the difference.
I know what it was. You know, there was a breath in a really weird place that we've seen, and then you have to come back in, and you have to. It's just what Rob was talking about, like mistakes that are kind of probably easy if you just listen back and make sure that you're lining up with everyone, because the background singers in the track, they take breaths at very specific places. Yeah, cool. Georgia.
Next slide.
This is I Wish. So it's a very different example. It's a lot more rhythmic. It's a lot more soulful, poppy, rather than choral or jazzy. And well, this is a little jazzy too. But so the main things in this are groove, not necessarily rhythm, but groove, and how you can feel that groove and where you place each note. And I'm going to point out one of the common pitfalls after we listen to Jeffrey. And also this one is a lot more dissonant than the last one. So there's some crunching harmonies. And when we hear you sing it, where you place the note kind of lets us know if you have an ear for that and if you can really tuck in those harmonies in the exact right place for them to work. And then style and soul, of course, just making sure that it sounds nice and sounds how it should in this soulful style. Let's take a listen.
Days could come back, oh, days end. Why did they have to go? Days could come back, oh, days end. Ooh, I love them so. Do 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 do.
I wish we could like quantify all of the musical data in what he just sang, because there's so many things to think about.
That's a really Ben Bram sentence.
You know, everything from the attacks. Is it a glottal attack? Oh, instead of oh, and then do 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 do, the little vibrato there. Days could have to go.
The little scoop. Days could.
Yeah. There's just
and the dynamic variety, even from like micro moment to micro moment, you know what I mean? It's not just this monotone one level thing. There's lots of nuance.
So much. There's so many things, and it would be impossible for us to point them all out. So part of this is seeing how much of it you can catch.
Right, and you probably honestly shouldn't be thinking about all these things specifically when you're doing it, because you'll get in your own head and you won't do it right. So it's really more about, I think the way to absorb this information is to listen to it a lot and try and sing along with it and just sort of get it in your muscle memory.
Yeah. One thing that Jeffrey could have done better that I want to point out is one little rhythm thing.
Could have gotten a haircut too.
Hey, don't say that.
Days could
So the back is a little early. It's really laid back. Come back. Da-da. So if you're listening, that's one thing from this that can be critiqued. Everything else is pretty much perfect. And then the doo-doos were a little funky, some of it, but basically really, really good example is this one. Cool, moving on.
I have one pitfall. I noticed this like at ICCs or ICHSAs. So if you come from a classical choral background, just if you've never sung in an a cappella group, just know that this is not the same thing. So it's going to feel a lot more like singing like a soloist who blends well. If you've only ever sung solo singing and pop and whatever, this is going to feel a little more choral to you. So it's just understanding where you are and then where you need to be for what this is.
Yes, very well said. Okay, cool. Moving on to secondary skills. Secondary skill is just basically the same things that we've already talked about. If you are primarily a beatboxer, vocal percussionist, then we're going to want to hear you sing a solo, or if you can sing bass, do a bass line, basically whatever other skill you want to present. And this is optional. Just if you do multiple things, do that. And then also, if you're not sure, if you say you are a vocal percussionist and tenor, and you're not sure which to classify yourself as, you don't know which one is your main thing, if you do them equally, ask people, say like, do you think I'd have better chances getting in doing this or that? And whatever is your absolute strongest, according to you and other people, do that first at the beginning. There have been examples when vocal percussionists will present themselves as singers and will end up taking them as vocal percussionists. So just kind of be aware of that and eliminate any of that fishing that we have to do. We would love for you to know that you're better at vocal percussion, Sometimes there's just no way to know though, but yeah. Miscellaneous skills, this is a really fun section and we get lots of treats. So I just want to point out a couple of cool ones. Don't feel like you have, this is another optional thing, only if there's something that you feel like you're really good at and it's fun and different, but don't feel like you have to do one of these. A lot of people sing in other languages, which is really fun. This is one in Mandan. Awesome. Here's another one. Self multi-tracking. Little Jacob Collier cover. So awesome. Cool. Moving on from miscellaneous skills.
Quick note about both of those. I just want to add, Beth put it in the chat too, but I think it's important, is that both of those things were they're a big part of those people's personalities. And then they really informed like where they wound up in the groups that they wound up in. So for Hisha's thing that we saw first, the Mandan song, that wound up in the set that they did that year at Academy. They actually used that specific skill for that group set. And then for Lazaro, like I remember that was a question of like, his solo was a little bit more classical and we weren't really sure like what his vibe was. And then we saw that and we're like, oh, okay, cool. Like he totally gets this vibe also. So it really helped kind of shape our impression of him as a singer. So that's really a lot of what miscellaneous skills can do, besides just being entertaining, is just give us that little extra window of like, oh, what are you good at? Like, what can we really utilize you for in a specific group?
Yeah, it shows us your personality, but it also shows us like what you're interested in. It's like clearly this person spends a lot of time music, you know, so it's giving us more information about you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Excuse me. Personal statement. So this is the little cherry on top of the whole audition. And it's pretty telling because it just is a chance for us to just get to know you a little bit and for you to kind of communicate why you want to come. And these are, you know, it's all across the board. We get so many different vibes and energies. And I think, you know, we want you to be yourself, but overall we want to see that you have a curiosity about music, a love of music, a collaborative spirit. Everything about a cappella at camp is about cooperation and teamwork. And so we want to make sure that everyone that we admit is really down to do that and really, you know, able to compromise about musical things and consider other people's perspectives and point of views. And there have been instances where we get people who are extremely driven and very singularly focused, and but maybe don't quite have that collective thing yet. And there are some people that have had that on their first audition, and then we kind of give them a chance and they come and then they change. And that's really cool to see. But I think the more you can really understand that vibe and present it to us and embody it, the more we're going to be like, yes, that is exactly what we're looking for. And they would be a great fit for camp. Because yeah, we have had people be like, yeah, you know, I think it would be a great place to network and advance my own career. And that's pretty much it. And we don't really want to see that. I mean, of course, that is one of the things that happens at camp. But that can't be the be all and end all. It has to be more than that. There has to be a little bit of like, I love working with people and music makes me so happy. And, you know, there has to be another level beyond that.
Great.
And so we want to root for you. Yeah. Make us be like, yes, we love it. Come to camp right now. Okay. So this is a fun section. We, with permission, it took auditions from people when they didn't get in and showed then when they re-auditioned and did get in. So we have a few examples of that and we'll talk about it. So this is Monica Saxton.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled waters, I will lay me down like a bridge.
So that's the first one. Should we talk about that first before you do the next, or should we do both?
Yeah, let's watch them both and then we can talk about the difference.
And then here's in 2016.
I gotta keep myself in check sometimes, 'cause I tend to dream real big sometimes. Fancy outfits and the sparkly awards, my name and last the people lined up at the doors. But I gotta remember, take it one step at a time. People seem to think that you'll be happier once you reach the top. You'll have it all. I'm living for it now. 'Cause what if tomorrow never comes? I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for the confetti to fall.
Cool. So an interesting thing that I noticed about these is that she's actually a little pitchier on the one where she did get in versus when she didn't get in, which leads to show you what we're looking for beyond just pitch accuracy. Do anyone want to jump in on what their reaction?
So, yeah, I mean, so I would say even though she's a little bit pitchier, I think what made up the gap for me was the phrasing, right? And obviously her energy was better, and she's got her energy, was even better in the years following. But I think if you listen to Bridge Over Troubled Water, there's breaths in weird places. There's like not really moving through the ends of phrases. It's a little bit more careful and stilted. Where you're right, it's a little bit more accurate, but it just doesn't really. There's not much storytelling to it. And with Confetti, there's a much more, she's breathing in the right spot. There's energy. It's moving the way that it should. And I think there's a trade-off that's okay there with accuracy if it just feels better.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like, the person on the left in 2015, I would be worried about that person going on stage and singing with other people, or even singing in a group. I would feel like, usually camp, a lot of people are singing one and apart. You have to be strongly confident on your part. And the person on the left, I would very much worry for that person. She has a beautiful voice, great pitch accuracy, but she seems extremely nervous. And so I would worry for her being on stage, which, then she wouldn't be able to come to camp. But the person on the right, I could see her on stage and I could see her holding her part with other people around, so it's extremely important that you show that confidence and that energy and that performance. You don't need to be over the top by any means, but we need to be able to imagine you on stage with other people holding your own part.
I think this was, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Oh, this is a good example of what we were talking about before about you want to be in the comfy part of your range soon, because she's really scraping the bottom for a long extended period of time in the first one. And in the second one, we hear the sweet spot of her voice almost right away.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think this is an interesting thing to point out, that I believe in 2015, I was a yes, because I just loved the way she sounded. And I was like, oh, she'll get more confident when she comes to camp. And, I was kind of rooting for her. And so I just want to kind of point out that, we don't always agree 100% on everything. Is that when we're going through these, we all have different reactions. And even what Rob came away with just now versus what Avi came away with led to the same conclusion, but they were different observations. And, we're all different people, so we come at things differently. So I just want to kind of point that out, is that it's not always unanimous. Of course, I was like, yeah, you're probably right. She probably needs another year. But I really love the way she sounded in 2015. Also, she was, looking down, just, very scared, but sounded amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes that decision winds up coming down to what the pool of auditions is as well. Like, it's not, these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. Like, it's not a yes or no about a person. It's yes or no about a person based on everybody that auditioned that year. So there may have been a year where the talent pool was different, and in 2015, Monica might have made it. It just depends what we're looking for in that year and who else auditions. Because she certainly was not bad. But there were other people that year that were just more what we were looking for.
Yeah. Great. Next. Here's another example. So this is for part singing.
Days could come back, oh, days end. Why did they have to go? Days could come back, oh, days end. Ooh, I love them so.
So before we move on to Georgia, just want to kind of react to that one. So stylistically, not quite right. The scoops aren't really in the right places. There's some pitch issues going on, and also some rhythm stuff, especially with the snapping. So we ask about the snapping specifically so we can see how people groove in I Wish. So there's a real like physical embodiment of the groove that happens when you have to physically do it. So it's very apparent when people aren't really grooving. So this was an example where she wasn't really grooving. She was snapping, and it was like almost in time, but it certainly wasn't grooving. Anything else to add to that? And then let's do I Wish in 2020.
days could come back. Oh, days end. Why did they have to go? Days could come back. Oh, days end. Ooh, I love them so.
Cool. So certainly wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than 2018. And it did.
One of the biggest differences I heard is that she's using more parts of her voice to do it, right? She's using more chest voice. She's flipping to the head voice for the do for that stuff. Whereas in the first one, it mostly was in that kind of lighter, hootier head voice, which was not right for that style. So somewhere between 2018 and 2020, she kind of learned how to use that part of her voice, and it was way better for that example.
Yeah, absolutely. So just seeing that progression is really cool for us too, just to see like, oh yeah, now it's gotten so much better and things are just falling into place more. So here's just like, should we do Georgia, or should we maybe just move on?
We can just move on. Yeah. Go on.
All right, here's a big one. So Angela auditioned for 3 years and she made it in 2020. So let's listen to these solos.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The second song.
So a little bit rough, and she attempted a little run that didn't quite happen. Next one.
I can feel the sun whenever you're near. Every time you touch me, I just melt away. Now everybody asks me why I'm smiling up from ear to ear.
So this one, I would say, is like a song choice where she went really went for it, which is great in spirit, but in practice, her tone wasn't quite right. She didn't have a lot of control. And so, and overall, didn't put her in the best light.
I'm scared. I've never fallen from quite this high, fallen into your ocean eyes. Those ocean eyes.
Getting a lot better. I think the song choice was really good, and she had more control, but still a little bit of control issues with navigating different parts of her voice, some pitch stuff. But it's definitely like going in the right direction here.
Feelings are fleeting, but now I'm surrounded. Visions of you shave into the side of my head. And as I sleep on the other side of the country, I wonder how it feels to be safe in the palm of your hands.
So much better. So yeah, this one, she chose a great song for her. Her voice has gotten so much stronger and more comfortable and can navigate all the different parts of her voice. And her control is on point and just like really nailed it. And I think a lot of this is just a matter of like growing into your voice too. You know, the voice is still developing at this age. So, you know, you can practice as much as you want, but like sometimes you just need more time. So I think this was a really cool progression. Any other thoughts from you guys?
It was a little bit song choice, I think, too. Like, I think that last song, you're right, it's partially like developing those parts of your voice, but then also that last song showed all those parts of her voice, whereas the other songs were really kind of hang out. The difference between 2018 and 2019 actually was huge, where it was like 2018 was so belty, and 2019 was so light, and then 2020 was like was the porridge that was just right. You know what I mean? It was like finding that spot.
Absolutely.
For me, I said it in the chat, but I just love how resilient this is, right? Like she auditioned 4 times, but like good on you, Angela. You kept auditioning and you got it in 2020. Yay. We love a resilient person. It's inspiring for me. But also it feels like you also learned who you were. You know what I mean? At first, was it like, oh, were you just trying to show off like what you could do or like what you maybe thought would be impressive? And then it really started to feel like the most impressive thing was just you being like authentic. And I feel like that really came across.
Love it.
Absolutely. Another thing I want to point out is just
Angela wants to say something also, if we want to let her.
Oh. You want to unmute her?
Do I have? Oh, I have.
You can unmute her, yeah. I don't have that screen.
Hold on, I don't either. Here, Ben, talk. Angela, I'm gonna find you and unmute you.
I got it. You can search.
Boom.
Yeah, I definitely, like, part of the reason I left it up, because I was a little embarrassed by the fact, but I also knew it was part of, like, a growth process. And, like, my 2017, I was, like, very belty. I wanted to show up, like, I can belt. But then I think over the years, I really came a lot more comfortable with my voice and my style. And, like, that's obviously really evident in 2020 when I, like, picked songs I just really liked instead of songs I thought would show off my voice.
Yeah, awesome.
So glad you kept at it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I think this is such great experience just to have this record of yourself. And for other people, like, even if you are looking at this and you're saying, I'm not good enough to get in this year, just audition anyway, because the process of making this audition is going to help you grow and help you look back and say, okay, what can I do better next time? And just the process of preparing, choosing songs, going through all this is such good practice. So I really recommend everyone, even if you're 100% sure you're not good enough to get in this year, I really suggest to everyone to still go for it, because it's just part of the
really never
know.
And not just for us, but always be looking for opportunities to record, collaborate, perform, audition, because the more you do it, the better at it you're going to be. You'll learn from all of those. You'll be less nervous because you'll be informed by the life experience. And like, if you're a musician, hopefully you love it so much that you're trying to do it as often as you can in lots of different ways. So like, go for it. And then you'll have done all this cool stuff that you can then showcase in an audition like this. Be like, look at all this cool stuff I did over the last year, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Obvious to go soon. So let's talk about our selection process. What's our method? How do we put groups together? When do you guys want to take it?
Sure. So basically our method is we get all the auditions in. We'll do a first round where we'll split up the list in some way, and we'll just do a first round look. We're just really looking at like the basics of what's happening, solo, blend, just, doing a quick look through all that stuff just to identify like, is this person in the ballpark or are they not really there yet? And if they're in the ballpark, they go to round two. Round two, we take a closer look at it. We watch through everything a little bit more carefully and really start to figure out, who's at the top of the heap, who's, good, but not super cutting it. And then we get down to basically at the end, the decision becomes a little bit more, well, I guess the first thing we do is we all sign off on people independently. So we'll have the people that make that second round, and anybody that the three of us watch independently and all agree on, you're in. Great. If there's anybody that's a question mark, like one person's totally in, or two people are totally in, one person's on the fence, that person kind of goes in the middle. And then our ultimate kind of deliberation round is the three of us talking about the people that hit the middle of the pile. And it goes one way or the other. And that really winds up often being based on the talent pool and who else auditioned and our conversations of, what do we need? What are we thinking? And then it's a little bit about putting the groups together as well. So if you want to
talk about slots of it. So when we let people in, we haven't made the groups yet. But we have like ascertained a certain number of slots for certain things. So for instance, if we know we're having 8 groups in a year, we're not going to let in more than 8 vocal percussionists, 8 primary vocal percussionists. We may, if we have like an extra good vocal percussionist who's a great musician who can also sing, we may take them off vocal percussion and make them a singer. So that's kind of how we look at that. Same thing with basses. Maybe there's a great bass who can also sing baritone. Okay, we have too many basses, we'll move into baritone. stuff like that. So we basically make sure we have the right number of rhythm section, and then generally that we're happy with the rest of our numbers, that we have enough tenors and baritones to have, you know, a full sounding group. And then we kind of just admit that whole swath of people. And then after that, we go and we start to actually put the groups together, and we say, who are our directors? What are their styles going to be this year? You know, what's the vibe going to be? And then we usually start with the rhythm section. We're like, okay, bass and drums, you know, which rhythm section feels right for this group? And then we just go down the line and just continue and keep all those things in mind, and we think about personalities. We think about, you know, all the stuff that we mentioned from the audition, the personal statements, the miscellaneous skills, and just try to build the best, get my next slide going, the best possible group possible. I think of it as like a team of superheroes. You know, everyone each brings their own special skills to the group to like make an unstoppable force.
And we do know, so I think to clarify though, like, you know, what do we know about what the groups are going to be when we're doing auditions? We don't necessarily know specifically what the groups are going to be, but we do know kind of like, because we know who our staff's going to be for that year, and we know what kinds of groups they potentially want to do. So we know, for example, like, oh, we know we're going to have a jazz group. Like, we know we're going to have a folk group this year. We know, like, we know we have that stuff. So there have been instances in the past where, you know, somebody maybe isn't like the best singer for every style, but we know like this year specifically, we're going to have a folk group, and they've got a really great folk sound. So we're like, you know what, they're going to go in that group. Perfect. And that's sort of how that decision gets made. Avi, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think for me, you mean in terms of the groups or just in general? In general, I mean, you know, I think we covered most of everything. I think, you know, we're looking for people that not only are extremely talented and we know that can do the part, but really people with good hearts that we feel like are going to really add to the family, and that will really contribute to the energy that's there. I think for me, that's probably the biggest thing. If you can sing in tune and you can sing in time, and you have a good heart, you're probably going to make it. And if not, then try next year.
Cool. Anything else on the main stuff we want to cover? Maybe we should get into questions now. We might have to let Avi go and have Ben and I do the questions.
I'll stick around for some questions.
Stick around for a minute. Okay.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So final thoughts on this. Like I said before, don't overthink this. You can audition for free. It's not a commitment yet. So like this year, it's all in flux. You can audition and then decide that you can't do it. So audition. Even if you think you're not good enough, audition anyway. That's just my spiel, and I'm going to spread it far and wide. I think it's there's no downside. So just do it. Should we open for questions, or maybe we should talk about the Zoom-a-thon first, then do questions? Yeah, let's just finish our spiel and then we'll do questions.
Yeah, well, actually, right before that, you know, I would just like to say, audition. Don't let money be something that's going to hold you back. Don't let where you live be something that's going to hold you back. Just audition, and if you make it, we will do everything possible to make sure that you can come. You know, we want to make sure that you also do your part to be able to come, but I don't think there's ever been one person that's made it that has not been able to come because of financial issues or because of where they live. So just audition, and yeah, don't let anything hold you back.
There's so many people that'll either message me or write on our socials like, oh, I can't. And it's like, but you never know until you try. So go for it. You have nothing to lose.
We've had people that have said that over and over again, and then they finally did it, and it was like the best thing ever for them. You know what I mean? It was
like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah, they were like, oh, I could have had 3 or more years of this. You know, it's like, you never know. Don't be in your own way. You know what I mean? Like, do the thing, and then we'll work with you to try and figure out, you know, the rest of the stuff.
And encourage other people.
And also, don't be intimidated either.
Yeah, we can't help you if you're not on our radar. You know, we can't help you if you don't audition.
I think also some people say if it's not money or distance, they, sometimes it's convincing parents why it's worth it, which there are lots of reasons why it's worth it. I promise you, it's so much more than just a summer program. But also there's like an inferiority thing, like, oh, like these people are so amazing, I'm not that good. But like, you know what? Everyone's different. Everyone is unique. Everyone has something special. And, and we love seeing these individual, unique people. So there's only one you, and we want to see it.
There's so many of our campers that felt like that. And often when they get to camp, they still feel like that. They're like, how am I here? Everyone's so amazing. I'm the worst, Unfortunately, it's like a common thing. But yeah, you just have to get outside of yourself and be like, maybe myself telling me that I'm not good, it's not true. maybe I'm lying to myself. So yeah, I would encourage everyone to just get beyond that and just go for it. Cool. So we're having a holiday Zoomathon, which is going to be really fun. We have a bunch of campers, alumni, staff putting on a little Zoom show to help support Acapella Academy. We had a rough year last year with digital, and we need to make sure that we are able to keep going monetarily. So that would really help us out if you come, and it's great, fun Christmas music, and you get to be a part of our little world for a bit. Yeah. And then acapellaacademy.org is where you'll find all the information about our sessions this summer, about our scholarship funds, about everything you need to know is there. And if it's not, you can email Beth at acapellaacademy with 2 A's at gmail.com.
Cool. Should we do questions? I think there's a lot of questions.
Let's do questions.
Yeah, I've been collecting them. I tried to organize them in sort of like the order that you would think through your audition. There's a lot of them. Do you want me to just go for it, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, will this slideshow and or our Zoom recording of this be available to people afterwards?
Yeah,
That's the question. Yeah, we'll figure it out, and we will make it known. So if you're not already following us.
I think it'll be at least unlisted, so you can like ask us for a link and we'll send it to you.
This video will be available somewhere for sure.
Somewhere. If we aren't making it publicly available, you can always just email. We'll figure out some way to make it available to y'all. A couple kind of international questions. Is it a big problem if you live in another country and don't speak English well? Which I would say, I mean, obviously, it's like if you come, there's English, and so you'll get a lot of practice, and so it can be definitely draining if you haven't been around it a lot. But you'll learn a lot, and you'll be in a supportive environment.
Yeah, we've
definitely had students that do not know much English, and you kind of have conversations with sign language, and but music is the universal language. So, but no, really, we've had students come that really cannot speak much English at all. And they have an amazing time. So don't let that hold you back.
And I think if you end up doing digital, it'll be a lot easier. You can translate things all the time, and you're not put on the spot as much. You're just kind of participating. So that's a good way to do it as well.
Definitely a challenge, but not an insurmountable one.
If there's a will, there's a way. It's like a big theme. And then someone was asking about if there's separate auditions for digital and in-person. It's not. So it's one audition, and you just tell us when you fill out your application, if you want to audition for one, the other, or both.
And then once we figure out what is happening this summer, then we'll reach out and you'll get to solidify. If we admit you, then we're like, okay, this is happening, which one you want to do, and then that'll all happen after the audition process.
Yeah, and that answers another question too about someone saying, do you have to choose? Tell us what you're interested in on the application, but like Ben said, we will give you the opportunity to change your mind or to make a decision after we accept you. Moving on to the audition, what is the best technical setup for the part singing so that the recording being played doesn't sound so harsh compared to your voice?
That's a good question. I think it can be any little speaker, laptop speaker works fine. As long as we can hear your voice clearly and we can hear the other parts a little bit, it's fine. It's not a big deal. So even just any kind of little speaker in the background, but I would say test it out. and make sure the level is good. We do want to be able to hear your voice most of all. So just make sure that it's not being buried beneath the other sound.
Anything else on that one?
Mhm.
There's a lot of solo singing questions. And so I'm going to fire through like all of them, and I kind of know the answer to these, but here we go. Are there any ones that are overdone? Do you have advice for people that have trained mainly in classical? Would opera be a miscellaneous skill? We get this question a lot about like,
we just
do you
answer?
really mean no?
You want to do one at a time?
Oh yeah.
Lightning round. Here we go.
Too many. The first one was, are there any songs that are overdone?
No.
Yes, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Don't just do what you want to do.
Just do what you want to do.
Do you have advice for singers who have mainly trained in a classical setting / is opera allowed for miscellaneous skill?
I would say just show that you can, make sure that, it's not always going to be huge, loud vibrato. Show that you would be able to blend in a poppy setting. You don't have to necessarily be able to riff or do anything crazy. But, just show that you can dial it down.
And yes, it's a good miscellaneous skill.
Definitely.
We get questions about musical theater a lot. People always want to sing as musical theater. And so do you really mean no musical theater? No, but really? No Broadway?
You'll be swell. You'll be great.
Hey, listen, if you have a favorite song from Dear Evan Hansen or something that's poppy, that feels poppy, we're not going to say no. Just we need to know that you can sing the styles that we perform. So if you're confident that the musical theater song you're going to sing shows us the styles that we perform at camp, absolutely go for it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's more about the presentation than the song choice, even, because it's like, I think what we really react negatively to is when somebody like does something very theatrically, does something in a very like musical theater-y style, and it's not really appropriate for like a pop group. So you could sing a musical theater song in a pop, with a more pop aesthetic or pop delivery. That would be totally fine. It's not really about the song. It's about how you do it.
Totally. And
knowing what you're auditioning for, because this isn't a Broadway musical, and so just understanding
Not yet.
Cappella Academy, the musical.
Nice.
Also, we generally don't perform musical theater songs at camp, so we also want to know that you like pop music a little bit,
And someone wants to know if we could do, if they said, could we do seasonal songs?
Sure.
Like Christmas songs? Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If there are songs we feel comfortable singing, but they were written by the staff, should we avoid it?
No.
No, go for it.
Do it.
Not at all.
We'll probably
on
send
the web. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably send it to the person that wrote it.
I'm going to summarize this question. Basically, someone was saying on the website it seemed like part singing was the most important, but today it seemed like maybe solo was. So is there a singular thing that's the most important part of the audition, would you say?
I think the point of us saying that on the website is that a lot of people in the past have overlooked part singing and not really done their best on it. So the point of that is to make sure that you really put time and energy into part singing, because if you make a mistake in part singing, you probably won't get in. So that's kind of what it comes down to, because the part singing is so specific and it's most of what we'll be doing at camp. So just do a good job on it. Obviously solo is important as well. But if someone has like a mediocre solo and really, really good part singing, they'll probably get in.
Exactly. You can save yourself a lot more with part singing than you can with a solo. That's like, if you really nail your part singing, then we're looking at you as being able to offer a lot more to a group than you might as a soloist, and it gives you a lot more options. It gives us a lot more reasons that we might be able to accept you.
This was answered in the chat, but just to clarify, with your solos, you are only singing part of the song. You're not singing the whole song. So like a verse and a chorus, kind of.
Please only sing part of the song. We don't have that much time.
Okay, moving on to rhythm section. If you have an audition that is a great bass, but also does beatboxing, do you tend to put them in a bass position where they are already solid, or do you put them in an area to grow from not knowing much?
It just depends on what we need, honestly, I feel like.
And generally speaking, we're making our group decisions based on what's going to be best for the group, not what's going to be the best, educational experience for that person. because we want our groups to be awesome and we want everyone in the group to have a really great time. And that happens when everyone is really on their game. So pick whatever they're best at, most likely, unless there's a change in, like Avi said, what's happening that year. Yeah, pretty much we'll choose what you're best at.
If you can do VP even a little bit, should one add it as a secondary skill, or would it take away from the audition as a whole?
It would not take away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say put it in.
Yeah.
And we've had people that didn't even, it seemed like VP was sort of like not their focus, and we ended up taking them as VP, so you never know. Can you do more than one miscellaneous skill? Is there a place to put your own arrangements in the audition? Yes. Show us what you got.
Yes and yes. That's where, like, miscellaneous skills, where you can put all the other stuff that you do, any original songs, any arrangements, whatever you want can go there.
Sorry, I got a private question that's hilarious. Okay. Any tips for scales? It wasn't mentioned.
So yeah, I saw that question. So scales are not such a huge factor in whether or not we accept you now. It used to be, before we had the blending stuff, the part singing in the audition, because that was really how we assessed your tone and assessed whether you were, how your pitch was. Now we have the blending exercises and stuff that we listen to for that. So that stuff is really used more now to create the groups. So it's not, I mean, you should do it well for sure. But that's not really what we're looking at to like make a you get in or you don't get in decision. I guess the only time it would become a factor is if like we're trying to figure out like, oh, we need like an especially high soprano for something, or we need like an especially low alto for a group or something. But I don't really think that that's like, I wouldn't stress out so much about, exactly how you do your scales, as long as they demonstrate your range appropriately. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I have to go. I love you all so much. Thank you for coming. And we'll see you soon, hopefully, whether it be virtually or in person. Definitely audition. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
Bye, Avi.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
And we'll hang out and answer remaining questions. Someone wants to know about scholarships. So someone want to take that?
What specifically about scholarship?
It just says, please tell us about scholarships. We have scholarships.
Yeah, you want to do it?
Me?
Yeah.
We have scholarships. We have partial scholarships, full scholarships, travel stipends. Now, please know that we are not funded to just give everybody full rides. We wish we could, but we will find a way. It's need-based, it's not talent-based, because everybody who gets in is excessively talented. But you submit after people are accepted, you submit an application if you want scholarship, and then we work together. So we're raising money for you, but then you're also raising money on your own. You'd be surprised how many times people didn't even know communities would rally around them, and they're able to crowdfund and they don't even need scholarship from us, which is great, because then we can give what we raise to people who maybe aren't in a network that could help them as much. But scholarships are there. Like,